Evam maya srutam akasminsam. Sutra. Evam maya srutam akasminsam. Thus have I heard at one time. Evam 1. Question. Why do Buddhist sutras begin with the word Evam, thus? Answer. -1. The buddhadharma is a great sea, faith is its entry, knowledge is its ferryman, Evam is a synonym for faith. The person whose heart is full of pure faith, is able to enter into the Buddha's doctrine. Without faith, he cannot. The non-believer says, "It is not so, that is the mark of disbelief," the believer says. That is indeed so, the disbeliever is like hard leather, that cannot be folded, the believer is like supple leather that can be folded for any use. Furthermore, it is said in a sutra, "Faith is like a hand, endowed with hands, the man who goes to a jewel mountain, gathers the jewels, at will." In the same way, the believer, penetrating into the Buddha's doctrine, this jewel mountain that contains the pure faculties, the powers, the path of enlightenment, and the dhyanas-the believer, I say, is able to take anything he wishes. The non-believer is like the person without hands. Without hands, the person who goes to a jewel mountain can take nothing. In the same way, the non-believer, going to the jewel mountain of the Buddha's doctrine, can gain nothing. The Buddha said, "If a man has faith, he can enter the ocean of my great doctrine and attain the fruit of the religious life. It is not in vain that he shaves his head and puts on the robes, if he has no faith, he cannot enter the ocean of my doctrine. Like a rotten tree that is unable to produce either flowers or fruit, he cannot win the fruit of the religious life. He can shave his head, dye his garments, study all kinds of sutras and sastras, he can gain no profit of the buddhadharma." This is why the word Evam occurs at the beginning of Buddhist texts. It refers to faith. 2. Furthermore, the Buddha's doctrine is profound and distant. It requires a Buddha to understand it. Without being a Buddha, the believer can enter into the Buddha's doctrine by the power of faith. Thus, Fan Tien Wang invited the Buddha to turn the wheel of the doctrine. He invited him with this stanza. In Jambudvipa, at one time, there appeared many impure doctrines. Open the gate of immortality, preach the pure path. The Buddha replied with this stanza. My doctrine is very difficult to grasp, it is able to cut through the fetters. Those whose minds are attached to the desire of the triple world are unable to understand it. Brahmadevaraja said to the Buddha, O Venerable One in the universe, knowledge is of superior, middling, or inferior category. People of sensitive and upright mind can easily obtain salvation. If these people do not hear the doctrine preached, they fall into grave difficulties. It is like the lotus, in the water. Some are born, some ripen, some remain within the water without emerging. If they do not have sunlight, they do not expand. The Buddha is like the sunlight, sent forth by his great loving kindness and great compassion, that he might have pity for beings and preach the doctrine. The Buddha recalled the qualities of the Buddhas of the 3 times, past, future, and present, all of whom preached the doctrine in order to save beings. I too, said he, must do the same. After having had this thought, he accepted Brahmadevaraja's and the other gods' invitation and preached the doctrine. The Bhagavath replied with this stanza. Now I open the gate to the immortal. The faithful shall obtain joy. I preach the wonderful doctrine to men. I do not preach in order to harm anyone. In this stanza, the Buddha does not say that it is the generous person who will obtain joy, or the person with knowledge, morality, patience, energy, dhyana, or wisdom. The Buddha is speaking only of the faithful. His intention is the following. My supreme, profound doctrine is subtle, immense, incalculable, inconceivable, immovable, without support, without attachment, and without perceived object, but it is not true that the Omniscient One is unable to explain it. That is why, in the Buddha's doctrine, the power of faith is primordial. It is by faith that one enters into it and not by generosity, discipline, patience, energy, dhyana, or wisdom. Thus some stanzas say, in this world, the mind of beings is changeable. They love the rewards of merit, but they dread meritorious action. They seek existence and avoid destruction. First they listen to doctrines drawing their inspiration from wrong views. Their mind becomes attached to it and they penetrate it deeply. My doctrine is very profound. Without faith how can it be understood? Thus the great disciples Tipo Ta, Devdatta, Kiu Kiali, Kakalika, etc., not having faith in the Dharma, fell into the evil destinies. These men had no faith in the Buddha's doctrine and were unable to discover it by their own wisdom. Why? Because the Buddha's doctrine is profound. Thus Brahmadevaraja uttered this stanza to Kakalika. You want to measure the incommensurable doctrine. The wise man has nothing to measure. He who wants to measure the incommensurable doctrine is nothing but a dull worldling. 3. Another meaning of Evam. The person whose mind is animated by correct faith can understand the doctrine. Otherwise, he understands nothing. A stanza says, the listener of pure and clear attention attentively follows the discussions. Leaping for joy, he hears the doctrine, his mind full of joy. That is the sort of person to whom it should be preached. 4. Furthermore, the word Evam occurs at the beginning of Buddhist texts. Present happiness, future happiness, the happiness of nirvana, all happiness has its roots in very powerful faith. 5. Furthermore, all religious heretics imagine that their own doctrine is subtle and absolutely pure. These people exalt the doctrine that they practice and denigrate that of